Hey everyone, welcome to another live stream from DTF Superstore. Super excited. Today we're doing it in our studio space, which is a little more controlled. So we should have some great audio and great video today. And today we're talking about making some great stuff. Halftoning, that's one of our most popular videos on our YouTube channel. It's also one of the most popular modules at our DTF boot camp. So halftoning is a huge deal, especially because it's ways to create drop shadows, to create glows, ways to handle when you don't have like a strong line that's binding the edge of your graphic. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're also going to talk about just kind of general practices with halftoning. We're going to show you guys how to make a glow effect, which is what you're seeing on Bart's shirt back there. It's also what our kind of main graphic was, but a lot of folks love a neon glow look, especially with retro styles kind of coming back. We're going to show you guys how to make glows. We're also going to show you guys how to handle drop shadows. And if there's a graphic that you guys have had trouble printing, we'd love for you to send it to us. So if you send it to Jeremy at DTF Superstore, we will look at it and see what we can do with it live on this live stream. So first things first, if you guys have questions or just comment wherever you're watching, whether you're watching on YouTube or our Facebook group, we will see all of those comments. So definitely hit us up with your questions and send me any of your graphics that you want to be addressed. So let's start out and let's just get right into how to halftone. So we got Photoshop pulled up over here. And if you've seen our halftoning video, you've seen this graphic before. One of the big problems that you run into if you try to print a graphic like this is basically there's a bunch of semi-transparent pixels. All these pinkish areas here are all semi-transparent pixels. And what happens when you're printing with DTF is those semi-transparent pixels, the printer puts white behind it. So all of a sudden they go from maybe being a darkish color to all of a sudden really light. And it really affects when you're printing on a black shirt. So the first thing you want to do if you ever get a graphic that has some transparent flames or anything like that on it, you want to basically put the shirt color substrate behind it. So in the case of this graphic, we want to put, pardon me one second, let me get that off the screen. There we go. We want to put a layer behind it that is the shirt's color. Now, if this was going on a different colored shirt, like blue or something like that, blue wouldn't look good. But if it were, you would want to make that substrate or that second layer, whatever that shirt color is. So we put a new layer in here, put on the back, and then Shift Delete is the shortcut that brings up this window right here. And it lets me fill it with a specific color. In this case, I'm going to do black. That's what it should look like when it prints. However, if you were to try to print this with without halftoning, all of these lighter areas or these areas where they fade into the black are going to just be completely washed out. So that's the first thing. First thing, put your shirt's substrate color on the back, and then we're going to actually merge those two layers together, which is Command or Control E to merge them. And then we're going to go right click and duplicate layer. Sorry, my windows are popping up on the other screen. There we go. And we duplicate to a new layer. Now, these are kind of the steps with halftoning. So we've put that background in. We've got, we duplicate the layer into a new document. And this is where we're going to create our halftone screen. So the first thing we have to do is go grayscale. So we go image, mode, grayscale. Because the way that the halftoning screen or the bit mapping works in Photoshop is it has to be only grayscale. And then what it does is based on what percentage of white is going to dictate the size of the dots. And it'll make a little more sense here in a minute. But one of the key things that we learned is that if you wanted to halftone an image and not have it dramatically affect the image, meaning make it really dim or kind of take away the brightness and the vibrancy of it, is we use the levels adjustment to pull more of those pixels into the white zone, because if it's white, those pixels are going to show through. If it's black, those pixels pixels are going to be invisible. We're going to basically get rid of them. So we go to image, adjustments, levels, and see right now, there's very little that's fully white. So there's very little that would like 100% show through. So we want to bring those whites down, and you're going to see here in the middle, kind of where the guy's face is, you're going to see that area become whiter and whiter. And the whiter it is, the more, or the less halftoning that's going to happen there. So we want to bring that white down to make sure our print is super, super vibrant. And then we want to bring up the black a little bit. And the reason we bring up the black is just purely experience. I've tested this about a bajillion times, printed a lot that didn't work great, and realized we have to crunch those blacks in a little bit. Otherwise, we get some kind of like gray, kind of like muted black pixels at the edges. So it just doesn't look right. So we do want to pull that black up a little bit. You can kind of see, especially above this orb here, you can see where the kind of cloudiness kind of goes away a little bit. And this is the stage where you finesse. So when you're trying to halftone an image, you're going to use different settings than I'm using here because it depends on the image. One of the images we use at DTF Bootcamp, I know my black set all the way up at like 13 or 14, and the white set down to like 42 or something like that. So it's going to be image dependent. Anyway, once you've kind of got it in the right ballpark, you're going to click OK. And then we're going to go image, mode, bitmap. And yes, flatten layers, that's okay. And what's going to happen here, I do this every time, and I do it at boot camp, and I hid this when I did the video. I forgot to double check my resolution. And I knew I was going to forget this, I swear. Anyway, when you're halftoning, you need to do two things before you ever start. You start by making sure your graphic is 300 pixels per inch, which I did not do because I forgot. And this is the stage that will remind you forgot to do that. The other thing is you want to make sure the graphic is sized properly for what you're going to print it on. Basically, you don't want to resize it after you halftone. So I need to go back. I tell the boot camp when I'm here teaching our 2-day boot camp, I always tell them I prefer video because then I can go back and cover up that mistake. So here we go. Let's go to image size, and we need to set it to 300 resolution. So let's do that, 300 resolution. And right now it's making the image 8 by 6-ish, and I really would like the width to be closer to 10. Sometimes when you try to increase the size of something, it'll negatively affect the artwork. In this case, because it's kind of a stylized hand-drawn thing, I'm not too concerned about that. So, all right, we got 10 inches by 13 inches at 300 pixels. Okay, that looks better. Now let's go through those same steps we did before. We're going to right-click, and we're going to duplicate the layer. And we're going to duplicate it into a new document. We're going to image mode grayscale, then image adjustments levels. Again, we're going to bring up those whites so that we have more of the vibrancy, and bring up our blacks a little bit to make sure those edges don't look too bad. Click OK. And then now we're going to go to image mode bitmap. All right, back to where we started. So 300 pixels per inch, and we're going to use a halftone screen. There are a couple other methods here, and those are useful in other scenarios, but in this particular case, we're going to halftone screen. And then click OK. It's going to bring up this window here. And we didn't get into as much detail on this in the video, so we're going to go in a little deeper here. The frequency is basically the size of the dots. And the smaller the number, the bigger the dots. I know it's a little counterintuitive, but basically if I were to do a number like 60 or 70, my halftone dots would be really, really small. And through testing, everything from 20 frequency all the way up to 70, really the best zone for 300 pixels per inch is between 30 and 40. Most of the time I do 35, but again, this is going to be a style preference depending on the graphic. Then the angle, currently set at 45, but that's because I was doing a different project. I'll show you that in a little bit. But basically, the angle is the offset of those dots. So if we have it set at 45, the next dot is at a 45-degree angle from the first dot. If we set it at 0, it's right here. At 90, it's here. What I've found is that if I use 45 on something that's natural, like a flame or something like this one, where it's not straight lines, if I use 45 degrees, my eye immediately discerns that pattern in the halftone. So 45 is what I would recommend if you're doing straight lines, like the neon sign, which I'll show you in a little bit. We did use 45 on that one. But on something like this, 22, and I have tried other angles, and you can try it too, but 22 seems to be a number that your eye just doesn't discern a specific pattern in those halftone dots. So, and that's really ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this thing look like the original, but print properly for DTF. So 35 frequency, 22 on the angle, and round shape. And I'm going to zoom in to see what happened there. See, it created all these dots. You'll notice that where we have the white 100%, there's no dots in there. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to hit Command or Control A to select everything, and then Command or Control C to copy it. We're going to go back to the original image, and we're going to create a layer mask. So it's a little rectangle here with the circle inside of it. And then hold down Option or Alt, Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC, and click on the layer mask. And then we're going to hit Command or Control V to paste the layer mask in. And there we have it. Now it's going to look a little funky because it did remove that whole black background. We're going to add that back in to double check. But you can see what happened here is all of those areas that were semi-transparent now have a darker kind of coloration because we put what is going to be the shirt's color behind it. We can check it with a background layer, but do know that really when you're halftoning something, a lot of times you're going to want to test because sometimes it just behaves a little differently, and that's been my experience. So one of the things I would suggest when you're trying to halftone things, especially on black shirts, I think most of the time you're going to halftone on black shirts. I think you want to make sure that you have some shirts to test on. So one of the things we've done is we order our bulk shirts from Sanmar. But what I do is every time I go on there to do an order, I always check the outlet section. One time I got like extra large youth black shirts for like 45 cents a piece. So that way, when I'm testing on those shirts, I don't feel bad because I'm not wasting like a $4 shirt. So that's my recommendation. All right. So it looks like we got a comment there. Is there a maximum width for better halftone? No. If you're talking about the overall size of the graphic, it doesn't really matter. The halftoning frequency is relative to the 300 DPI. So if I were to try to do a smaller resolution, those frequency numbers would be off. That's all that would change. But you can halftone as big of a graphic as you want. Obviously, if it's like a really, really big graphic, like say you're doing it on like a banner or a billboard or something like that, then you might want to do larger halftone dots so you do smaller frequency. All right. We go over removing halftoning other colors. Yep. Like white. Okay, so removing other colors, white and black are easy, like super easy. Literally, if you're doing it on a white shirt, you do the inverse. Though aside from like making the graphic softer, like basically what we're doing here is a halftone color knockout. Really, that's what we should call it. It's not just halftoning, but we're doing a halftone color knockout because we're basically removing a bunch of extra pixels. We're removing all this stuff that was going to look white and kind of washed out. On a white shirt, it's not as noticeable or as big of an issue because it's going on a white substrate, but you can use the halftoning to do a good color knockout to make it feel a million times better. So what So white and black are basically the same technique. You just invert the mask is basically what you're doing. So you basically create white as the invisible and black as the visible. Is basically how you do it. When we do different colors, that's where it gets a little bit hairy. So I'm going to pull up. I'm going to find a little flame graphic here. Let's go flame PNG. And yes, I did search this yesterday, so I did do a little bit of testing on this. Let's see. Let's go with this one. And is that that is not a PNG. My apologies, everyone. Give me 1 second to find a good flame. Maybe it's already saved on my computer because I did it yesterday. Give me 1 second. So while I'm finding this, just to give you guys when you're half toning on a different substrate, like a different color, if it's like either red, green, or blue, like those primary colors, or cyan, magenta, yellow, it's relatively easy. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. If it's a different color, there's a lot more steps involved to try to make sure it comes out right. And we're working on some different projects to potentially help you guys with that. All right. And open that in Photoshop. Okay. So let's say somebody sends you this flame and they're like, hey, I want that on a blue shirt. So first, let's double check our resolution, shall we? Because I did not do that last time. And is that actually a PNG? Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. That is not an actual PNG. I thought I had saved that flame, and now I can't find it. Here it is. Nope. Flame PNG. I swear that's exactly what I looked at yesterday, but let's see. Here we go. One moment, everyone. I'm not signed in on that tab, so. Do you have more questions? Is the team answering some of those questions? Let's see. But yeah, so there are definitely some unique situations where the substrate color is different. Um, we are actually in the background working on some maybe special tools coming here soon for Photoshop, but it might make some of these things easier. Okay. Here, this one is going to be atrocious. So we're going to use this one because it's going to be really hard for me to do it right. All right, while that's downloading, I did see somebody sent me an email file for Halftone. Ooh, that's a good one. It's got some drop shadows. I'll bring it up in just a minute for you guys. All right, here we are. So we've got these flames, right? And you've got all this like semi-transparent pixel stuff up here. And honestly, guys, in my experience, is a lot of problems are caused by semi-transparent pixels. So anytime you get some artwork, you definitely want to check and make sure there's not semi-transparent pixels on the edge. They're going to cause some issues. All right, let's see. Here we are. Yep, 300 pixels per inch. Let's do that. And width, we definitely don't want that. So let's pretend this is going on like the back of a shirt. So 12 inches wide. And we're going to create another layer, move it behind. And we are going to Shift delete, and we're going to fill it with blue. So let's do blue on this one. That's a nice blue. Let's just make sure we're pure blue just to make this a little easier. There we go. Okay, that's not the greatest looking graphic I've ever seen in my life, but it's still going to let me show you guys how to do this. So if you are doing a red, green, or blue, you can go to channels and basically see just the blue channel. If you're doing cyan, magenta, or yellow, you'd actually need to change your file's color mode to CMYK. And I get this question asked all the time. Is it better to edit in CMYK or RGB? It's better to edit generally in RGB because the files that you output that you send to your RIP software are almost always RGB profiles. So if you're doing like a CMYK to RGB to CMYK for the printer, it's just a bunch of conversions. So I suggest staying in the RGB color space for the most part. So right here, I've got, oops, let me go back here. I need to make sure I merge these layers first. So merge them together. Now, if I go to the channels, that should look a little bit better. So there we go. I've got my blue. I'm going to select all. So Command or Control A, then Command or Control C to copy it. And if I remember all my steps from yesterday, whoops. There we go. Okay, so what I want to do is actually just want to take this channel and I'm going to do what we did before. I'm going to halftone that. So I'm going to say duplicate layer. I'm going to duplicate it to a new document. So these are all the same steps for halftoning every time. And then in this case, so we're already technically in grayscale, but we have to tell the system we want it grayscale. So grayscale it. And now, again, the white means it's going to be invisible when we make our layer mask. And you're going to notice there's a lot of white in the middle because there's a lot of blue coming through on that flame. So we're gonna actually force some of this with our levels adjustment. So see how little of it's black. We actually want to make more of it black. Or actually, hold on, this is inverting. Oh, I apologize. So one thing I did not do, I need to invert this. So I need to invert it before. So if you're doing a color, I just picked up this yesterday because I was like, I got to figure out a way to show you guys how to do other color substrates because people kept asking. So this one's not as dialed in as like my regular white black halftoning. So you invert it. Now we're going to do those same steps. We're going to duplicate layer. I'm going to go new. And then again, like we said before, mode, grayscale, image, levels. There we go. That looks better. So we're going to crunch our whites down because the white is what we want to really show through. And then the blacks, like I said, in my experience, you don't want those super wispy grays right there at the bottom edge. So I do want to bring that up a little bit. Click OK. And then image, mode, bitmap. Again, these are all the same steps. And 3522. And there we got our halftone dots in there. Then we hit Command A or Control A, Command or Control C. So it's to select and then copy. Go back to our original. Select our layer. Add a layer mask. Option or Alt click and paste it in there. And something went a little awry with my resolution. I didn't have my resolution set properly somewhere. So, but that's what it's going to do. Now it's going to look like trash. I'll be honest. When you first look at these, it always looks a little rough. It will make sense when you put that substrate color under your layer. And so This particular flame I found was not entirely ideal. I'll be honest with you, but it gives you the same idea, the effect. It allows you to basically have pixels that fade into what is your shirt color. Um, yeah. So when you guys halftone, um, again, it's important to practice. It's important to play with it. It's important to kind of finesse some things. And at the end of the day, there are some graphics that will just be really, really difficult. We had somebody submit some graphics that they used for DTG printing because they were considering switching to DTF. And I literally looked at the graphic and thought that thing is optimized for DTF. Like it was dialed in for, or sorry, optimized for DTG. And it took a while kind of finessing those levels adjustments to really get it to look right. So, all right. So that's kind of dealing with fades into nothing from like an original image. What I want to show you guys is dealing with a drop. Since somebody emailed me, I'm going to go and pull up their drop shadow. So here is, let's pull this up. Here's their graphic. And we got a pretty nice drop shadow on this right there. Now, advanced impressions. So if you're in the chat, what color shirt is this going on? If you could help me out. My guess is maybe a white shirt. I don't know. Let's throw a couple backgrounds on there while we're waiting for their response. We'll see what other colors look like behind it. So let's start with black and see what that looks like. Probably not a black because then that drop shadow completely disappears. So let's do a white and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's probably what's going on. Team, let me know if there's a comment or if they come in with an answer. So, like anything you're half toning, you want to always put the substrate color on it first, because if we tried to just do the half tone with these semi-transparent pixels under here, it would not look right. So we always want to start with the substrate color going on behind it. And then we want to merge the layers together. What if I wanted to edit that after the fact? Can I just paint on the layer mask and bring some flames? No, you couldn't do that after the fact, because unless the graphics you're putting on top of the halftoning, unless those are totally opaque with no semi-transparent pixels on them, that'll work fine. But the minute you lay any kind of semi-transparent pixel over a graphic, and then try to print it on DTF, it's always going to look blown out with white, like cloudiness. It's just, it always looks rough. We've had some people that try to print some halftone stuff that had a lot of semi-transparent, and the whole thing just looks really, really muddy. So, all right. So let's go ahead and halftone this. Let's halftone this drop shadow specifically. Now, we don't want to affect any of this main graphic, right? I mean, that you don't want to halftone. We just want to halftone what are the edges here where the drop shadow is. So let's merge these together. I'm going to show you guys how we're going to handle that. So just like before, duplicate, and we're gonna make our halftone screen specifically focusing right now on that drop shadow. So all the steps are the same, except for one, I didn't check that we're doing 300 DPI. So let's double check that real quick. Image size. Oh, we're at 72 DPI. Now it's totally normal that your software might save it in 72 DPI. This is, let me see how many pixels this is. So it's 3,500 pixels. So it's plenty big enough. Just the system needs to know we're doing 300, because if it doesn't know we're doing 300, then all of our halftone settings are off. So there we go. 300, duplicate layer to a new document. And then we're going to, like before, we're going to go mode, image mode grayscale, image mode levels. Now, we're not as concerned with this one about doing this levels adjustment, and here's why. Because all we're focusing on is this area here. Now, because it does go so light and wispy, I know we want to crunch the blacks in a little bit, but we're really not going to need to mess with the other colors too much, but let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to crunch this black in just a touch to make it a little deeper. Oh, and so since we're going on white, this is all inverted, sorry. So we're going on a white, so we actually want to pull the white in a little bit. And if you look at the edge, so look right, let me zoom in. Look right here at this edge. If I zoom this back out, see how it kind of almost starts to choke it in a little bit? Obviously, that's too far. So let's pull it right about there. And again, everything's going to kind of be inverted on this one because it's going on a white shirt. So when I pull my black up, that's functioning like the stuff that's going to stay there. Now, I could do like this, and that would mess it up. But really, what I'm focusing on and what I want to focus on is this shadowed area. So I'm going to finesse with this a little bit. So I really want like about there to be where the half toning kind of starts and where it stops. Okay, let's see how this turns out. Let's go image, mode, bitmap, 300, 3522. Now, it is half toning all the rest of this stuff. I'm not too worried about that. I'll show you guys how to deal with that in a second. We're just wanting to check these areas where the drop shadow is. So that looks pretty good. So let's do Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Again, to select all and then copy. And then we're going to create a layer mask. Option click, Command or Control V to paste it. Okay, so like I said, well, first thing, you'll notice I need to invert my mask because basically what I've made invisible is all this other stuff, not the white. So if I click on the layer mask and I hit Command or Control and Shift I, whoops, sorry, Option click or Alt click on the layer mask and then Command or Control I to invert it. There we go. Now we've got the white knocked out and we can see this kind of halftone shadowy thing we've created here. Now, I might decide that I don't like how dark this area is here, but let's play with it first before we go there. Basically, the next thing you guys want to do is we're going to kind of, what we want to do is we want to overlay the main part of the graphic with one that's not been halftone. So we have a couple ways we can do that. We can either disable the mask for right now, which if you go Shift and click on the layer mask, it will disable it for a moment. And then what I want to do is I'm going to use my the quick select tool, and I am going to kind of try to select all of this upper graphic. Now, this isn't always going to work super great. It just depends on the type of graphic that you're working with. But basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to select as much of this without the drop shadow, and then we're going to pull that out of the layer mask. The other way you can do this is you can re-enable the layer mask and then go in here and kind of paint back over what you want to be 100% visible and thus not half-toned at all. So if I click on the layer mask and I'm going to use my pencil tool, not the brush tool, even if you set your hardness at 100 with the brush tool, it will still create some semi-transparent pixels. And then I'm going to just kind of start to paint this back in. See how that vibrance comes back into it? And again, I just want to paint till I'm right at the edge of those drop shadows. So, and there's going to be a bunch of different ways that you guys can go about bringing this back. But this is what you have to do with a drop shadow is you just want the halftoning to affect the drop shadow, not the original image, right? So we'll go back through and basically paint all this back in. You might need to use some a smaller brush or smaller pencil size. And again, if you are some other graphics, you might just be able to use that quick selection tool to select it all. But because of the way this graphic is designed, it needs a little bit more attention paid to it to make it work. And then I say this all the time to my folks that come to our boot camp, charge for artwork. If you need to do some artwork for a client, charge for it, because your knowledge and your time are worth money. So don't be afraid to charge to prep some artwork for someone. And again, the other thing we're doing here with the halftoning, in this case, we're just trying to make a drop shadow look good. But with the other techniques like the color knockout, we're trying to make the shirts feel softer. A lot of the complaints for DTF are that the transfers feel kind of plasticky. If you can halftone some stuff, it will take away a lot of that plasticky feel for sure. So you're going to make your customers happy because they're going to have a better feeling shirt. And for you as the DTF producer, you're going to save money on ink costs, because the amount of ink that you save by halftoning can be upwards of 50 to 70% depending on how you've halftoned that particular graphic. So it is a huge, huge money saver, and it's going to give you a reputation of knowing how to make amazing direct-to-film graphics. So basically, I would just take the rest of my time to continue to fill that stuff back in. But then when we go to print it on a white shirt, it's going to keep all of this stuff. Well, that's part of the graphic there. But it's going to give us that drop shadowed effect without the extra stuff on it. Now, the drop shadows, like I said, with white, it's not as big of a deal, because if you're going on a white shirt, it's not gonna be as noticeable. But if you're doing a drop shadow onto any other color shirt, it's gonna be a big deal. Also, if you try to do it on black, if you try to print something with a drop shadow on black, it's always gonna look rough. If it's going on black, I'm not sure why you're using a drop shadow, but anyway, so that's kind of the steps for doing a drop shadow. Now, the last one that we're going to cover is what you guys saw here, the DTF Superstore little neon design. I know retro is a lot of fun. People love to do the neon designs. I actually have it here as well. I'll show you guys. I'll show it to you right now. So if we zoom in on this, I think we're on the other cam. There we go. Oh, there we are. So if we actually zoom in a little bit tighter on it, you guys are going to see some kind of like a little bit darker spots here. When we halftone and we do a neon effect, it's always going to create really, really small dots. And what that looks like on the back is a little bit terrifying for some producers. That's what the back looks like. There is a decent amount of coverage back here that doesn't have a ton of white underbase. And that's because the pixels or the dots are so small that any kind of choke we have set is going to basically leave off some white underbase. Don't stress entirely about that. That's okay. You do want to have some kind of choke set on it, even when you're doing halftone dots, but you want that choke set a little bit lower. And then one thing I actually found literally pressing the shirt that's on Bart right now, one thing I found is that I pressed it, I let it cool, even though it's a hot peel, because anytime you do fine details, you always want to let it cool a little bit. I found that after I let it cool and did a little t-shirt rub technique that you've probably seen on our peel videos, I put it back on the heat press for just a few seconds and it peeled off super nice and didn't leave quite as many of the dots behind. So that was something new that I learned. It's very normal to lose some halftone dots when you're peeling this, and it also won't peel as nicely and smoothly as you're accustomed to with kind of standard graphics, because each one of those dots is kind of holding on a little bit tighter to that release layer. So let me show you guys how to create neon glows. Let's start with a new document. And when we start with a new document, we can make sure that we're 300 pixels per inch. We sure are. And then my width, I'm going to set it to 11 because I'm a big dude. Actually, I'm going to do 12 because effectively I really want my graphic to be about 11, but I need to leave room for that glow. So we're going to do 12 inches. And for now, let's just do 8 inches. I might change my mind on the height of that in a minute. And let's make this layer black. So shift delete. Let's put it on black so we see what it looks like. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little box like it's a neon sign. You don't have to do a box, but I like the idea of doing a box. I'm going to do my fill as none here in the appearance properties area. I'm going to do my stroke white. And then I'm going to make my stroke about 15 pixels. That kind of looks nice, I think. And then because neon doesn't tend to have hard corners, I'm going to round my corners just a little bit. And let's see what that looks like. Perfect. Now, it's easiest to start with this particular, like the basic shape, and then you can do your layer styles like pasted onto the rest of them. So we're going to right click on the rectangle and we're going to go blending options. And this is going to bring up our layer styles panel. And obviously we're going to want to use an outer glow. Sure, that's pretty normal. And then, can you mute my mic real quick? Thanks, team. Yeah, I did not want to cough into your ears. I apologize. So, outer glow. Let's do a green neon sign because green is fun. Let's go. Yeah. I'm gonna copy and copy this hex code because I'm gonna need it again in a minute. So I've set my first glow as green. And let's see, noise, where are we at? I didn't check all of my settings. Image mode. I started working in grayscale. Oops. Okay. Let's try that over. Let's try that again. Let's fill this all black. And guys, I hope this shows you that it's real easy to accidentally miss a step because I literally do this kind of stuff all the time and I miss a step. And luckily there's things that kind of let us know when we've done it wrong. So there we go. Green. And we're 15, I think we decided. There we go. Round them corners. All right, now let's right click and see if layer styles works better this time. Here we go. Outer glow. We're going to paste our green code. Hey, that looks better, doesn't it, guys? All right, here we go. So zooming in, we can see we got a hard white line. And if you've ever looked at a neon sign, the middle, the core of it is always a bright white, even if the rest of the glow are other colors. Same thing with lightsabers too. Big Star Wars fan. Whatever. Okay. Now, with Photoshop, you could technically just create a really big glow, but it doesn't tend to look quite right. We actually kind of want to make layers of glow. So we want a really intense glow right by the stroke, but then we want kind of some varying glows that go out from it. Now, Photoshop does not have the ability to do, sorry, let me move this a little closer. Photoshop does not have the ability to do multiple glows like you can do multiple strokes, but it does let us do multiple drop shadows. And we can actually treat the drop shadow like it's a glow. So we're going to pick our color and we're going to make our color the same green color. And if you watch me make it bigger, see how it's and it's a little different kind of a glow. So I actually love the way it looks. We don't want to use global light because we are using a drop shadow, but we're making it function like a glow. And then we're just going to repeat this a couple times. So we're going to make a couple other drop shadows. And this first one here, I want to actually make that a little more intense. So I'm going to bring its size down and bring up its spread. Let me show you. See what happens when I bump my spread up really high? I don't want it that high. There we go. And then this one, I want a little bit wider, but a little more spread. There we go. And then we're going to do one more that's going to kind of create that final really big glow, but it's not going to be a super bright one. And you can do this with any color, any kind of neon type color. I'm just choosing green for now. And then let's bump the spread a hair. There we go. So I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's see. We're going to do any of our company names we can throw in here. Let's do text in here and do advanced impressions, but I'm going to choose the word advanced. Now, right now my text is black. I need to make it white. And you will see this is not a great font. If I can spell correctly, there we go. This is not a great font for a neon sign. What you want for a neon graphic is a font that is the same width no matter where it goes. There's a couple of fonts specifically on Adobe font that are great for this. There's one called HT Neon. You can see it there on the screen. There's also one called Handsome Pro that looks pretty good when it's lowercase letters. So actually, I love that one. That one looks really nice. I'm going to go with that one. There are a couple other ones. There's like a neon. And these are all from Adobe stock. So if you have Adobe subscription, you will likely have access to all this stuff. This Ohm one is kind of fun if you're going for something big, blocky. But for this particular situation, I'm going to use the Handsome Pro. And we're going to make it way bigger. There we go. And let me double check a couple of these settings here. I noticed there's a little bit of a right there. The N is kind of sticking out of the C, and that's because I've got these kind of pulled too close together. So I'm going to make sure my spacing, my kerning is set to 0. And I'm going to make sure I'm at optical. I didn't like optical. See how the D and the V kind of separated? I think it'll look better if we do metric. Yeah, I like the way that looks. And the fun thing I like about this font is they're all connected, so it definitely carries that neon vibe. Now, cool thing about Photoshop is all that work I put on the first glow, I can just stick it on the second glow. So I can hold down Option or Alt, click on the FX, and drag it onto this one. Boom. Just made it up there. Okay, we got a comment here. So can you save this as a style once it's done? Yes, you can. You can absolutely save the style. And I mean, I would suggest that now there is going to be some finesse because if you notice, like, I don't love the way that advanced looks with those exact settings. So you may want to adjust, but definitely save stuff as layer styles. Another thing I've seen some different tutorials do is use a little bit of an inner glow to help it not be a hard line between those edges. But yeah, no, that's totally, that's a great idea. So definitely if you plan on doing this on a regular basis, you can do that. All right, so if I zoom out of here, or if I remove my back layer, you're going to see we got all sorts of semi-transparency going on here. And as we've learned already, semi-transparency is bad. So what I'm going to do to halftone this, now I always suggest that anytime you permanently change something, you always leave a copy of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy or select all these, Command J to copy all of them or duplicate all of them. So see here, it created 3 versions down here. So in case I want to go back and change something, I could. But then I'm going to take these 3 and I'm going to merge them together with Command E or Control E. Now I literally just go through the steps that we showed you guys earlier. We right click, duplicate layer to a new document, click OK. We're going to go image mode grayscale, image adjustments levels. Now, this one took some playing when I first started doing it. The first few neon signs I tried to make just were a royal pain in the rear end. And this one, what I found was that I don't want to crunch the black as much as I do with like kind of the normal half toning. And I don't know, Maureen, if you can get in any closer, like I don't know how close that camera's going to get, but you can see, hopefully you can see some of the halftone dots back here. They are, they're very standardized looking. And we mentioned before the 22 degree angle versus the 45. This is the case we're going to use the 45. But see how there's a big gap here on the histogram between where kind of the colors start or where the different, there's a gap here. I'm trying to figure out how to say this properly because we're technically in grayscale. But that gap that's right there between where the white is for sure and then the other kind of faded grays start, what I found is that I want to bring this white triangle down to where I just start to hit and then right under it, because what happens is I don't want any of that initial green on the edge of the tube of the neon. I don't want that to halftone at all. So basically what I'm seeing here is I'm going to bring it down to where it's just under that. That way none of that initial green gets halftoned, and then just everything else that kind of comes out of it, that's going to get halftoned. And again, like I mentioned, I don't want to crunch the black down too much. Maybe a little bit. If I zoom in up here, it's really hard to tell because it is so subtle, but I maybe want to crunch it in just a little bit. And we'll try that on for size. And then, like before, image mode bitmap. Okay. 300 pixels. Yep, everything's good. Now, we're going to do an angle of 45. And because this is a little more, it's a little less natural flowing, more hard lines and stuff like that, I actually think I'm going to go with a little bit smaller halftone dot. So I'm going to go 40. And also, when you have smaller halftone dots, those subtle transitions, like at the edge of the glow where it's going from the gray to the white, using a little bit smaller dots allows for a little bit more of gradual progression into that. So in this case, I'm going to use 40 for the frequency and 45 for the angle. And there's what it makes for me for the halftone screen. Going to Command A or Control A, Command or Control C to copy it. Go back to our original. Click the layer and add a layer mask. Command or Option or Alt click. Paste it in there. And make sure everything else is turned off so you guys can see it. Whoops. Don't want to get rid of that. So this is halftoned. If I get rid of that, you're going to see those dots as they fade into the black, they get darker and darker. That means it's going to look right when it's put on a black shirt. To give you guys an example of what it looks like compared to what the original did. So look at the word advanced. So that's the original design. Oops, sorry, let me move it up so it's off of my face. That's the original design. That's with it half-toned. So we do lose a little bit of that glow. And you can finesse it too with those level adjustments if you want a little bit more. But what you get is a glow effect on shirts. And Maureen, I don't know if you can, actually I'm going to bring Bart over a little bit into the light. So if you want to get in on his shirt there. So what you get is a glow on a halftone or on a black shirt. Like, it looks killer. When I pressed that yesterday, we were all kind of really impressed with how it turned out. I'm definitely from up close. You can see where like the edges are. You can definitely see a little bit of some subtleness, but I mean, even our camera as it's trying to adjust the exposure, you barely see it. So great, great tool. I know a lot of you guys have wanted to do neons and glows for a long time and maybe just haven't felt like you could. Well, I think with this half toning technique, you definitely can get those glows. Be careful of like massive glows because they will get off the edges. The other thing you want to be aware of is be careful that your glows don't go outside of the bounds of your graphic. So like at the bottom of this, there's a slight, you can see a little bit of a hard edge. You might not be able to see it on the camera there, but there's a slight edge. If you go back to the screen capture, Phil, right there, you want to just make sure that your glow isn't dipping into the edge of your graphic because it's real easy when you halftone to accidentally have something like have a hard edge. And that's the other thing I'll tell you guys is when you're halftoning, if it's a natural thing like the first graphic that we looked at, like this one here, this one works really well on a shirt because it doesn't have hard edges on it. And so it gives that more natural organic feel. So, all right, were there any other questions? Any questions that I didn't get a chance to answer on their team? So sweet. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys. If there's another one, that's fine. I'll grab it. But if you guys, let's see, I'm new to printing altogether. I'd like to know if there's a way you have the best colors without a spectrometer. So that's a great question. And we cover that in our DTF bootcamp, but I'll also answer it here. Depending on the machine you have, no. There's really no way without some kind of spectrophotometer. Now we sell, or we suggest you buy the NIX color sensor, NIX color sensor. It pairs with CADLink Digital Factory 11, which is the RIP software that we recommend here at DTF Superstore. The full package, the NIX color profiling add-on and the NIX sensor together is about $500. But yeah, most of the machines, especially the ones that were based in China or the ones where you can use your own ink or different kinds of ink in it, you really have to have some kind of spectrophotometer and a system to scan your colors to make sure they're accurate. That is one of the biggest problems people have in the DTF industry, I think, aside from like some banding stuff, is reproducing accurate colors. And we hear it all the time. We had just the other day, this last week, we had a couple that came in to look at some of our machines, and they were ordering transfers, but the company they were ordering from kept changing their inks, which changed their color accuracy. So with some of the newer machines like the Mamaki that we sell, the profiles tend to work better from machine to machine. So when our techs install and they install our DTF Superstore default profiles, those print pretty accurately. But any other machine that you might have, you're probably going to have to use some kind of spectrophotometer because every ink's different. Like we have I think four different kinds of CMYK ink, and each one of those are going to produce slightly different results. So you want to make sure you're able to dial your machine in. Wonder if new machine is different than the old machines. New or old is not going to be a big difference. It's what platform it's running. So if you're printing with a Chinese-based machine that prints on an i3200 printhead platform where you have bulk ink, you are going to definitely need a spectrophotometer. Maybe some newer stuff. Hey, everyone, say hi to my wife. She's trolling me right now. You like spectrophotometer? I'm not saying it 5 times fast, I will probably stumble over myself. But I don't know if y'all heard the team. We have this really cool setup. I'm actually loving our setup right now, guys, because all of the editors, everyone's running the live stream, are all back in their offices with windows, so they can all have conversations. Y'all don't hear it. How long does it take to get the NIX set up? The first time you set up the NIX color profiler, it will take you like 2.5 hours. But the thing is, you don't need to do it every time you print. You only need to profile it once for a specific film, ink, shirt color combination. So if you have one type of ink you use and one type of film, you would do the ink film and then a black shirt, and then you'd also do it again on that ink film and a white shirt. If you were to change your film or your ink, I suggest running that NYX color profiling again, because it is going to make a big difference. So you guys want to make sure you do that. And if you guys, if you're sitting here and maybe you're newish to printing and you're kind of not sure where to get started with, we do have our DTF boot camp that we host here basically once a month. I think we're taking a break in December because of the holidays and stuff like that. But we do have our November boot camp scheduled. There are still seats available. It is a 2-day class where we will teach you everything you need to get yourself up and running and to be probably one of the better DTF producers in your area, because we cover everything from graphics and artwork handling to how to optimize your printer, to how to optimize your pressing. Like, we're going to help you become an expert and really be able to produce amazing DTF graphics. Are there any good color profiles for the Mach-E DTF to improve vibrancy? So we've got some default profiles that we've been working on. And I know, Tom, you have one of the 150s. So shoot me an email, Tom, and I will try to get that profile over to you. We've got one for a black shirt. But we're working on some more so when our techs come out and install, we've got some baseline color profiles for our Mach-E users. Yep, there's my email. Now I'm going to get bombarded, and I'm going to have lots of emails asking for color profiles. But I think that about wraps it up. If you guys want more education, check out our YouTube channel, subscribe. We've got lots of tutorials on there and more coming. We also have our DTF University, which DTF University is free for any DTF Superstore customer. We've got tutorials for a lot of different software, as well as maintenance for printers and dryers and things of that nature. And then if you really want to go intense and up your DTF skill sets and be able to produce the best DTF transfers and shirts and garments in your area, sign up for DTF Bootcamp. It's only $200 and 2 days in Arizona. Right now, it's beautiful. The rest of the country is starting to get into the cold season, and this is our time to shine in Arizona. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. Again, Jeremy at DTF Superstore, and I appreciate you guys watching today's live stream. Hope you learned something, and I hope this helps you guys produce some better DTF transfers for your customers. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.